Have you ever picked up a highly acclaimed book, cracked open the first few chapters, and then found yourself so utterly confused you practically threw it across the room in frustration?
Oh, yeah. I think we've all been there.
Right. Well, if you're nodding right now, trust me, you are not alone in that feeling. Welcome to today's deep dive.
We have a really fascinating one today.
We do. We're exploring George Saunders' Booker Prize and Grammy-winning novel Lincoln in the Bardo, and our stack of sources today is pretty incredible.
Yeah, we have a robust collection of excerpts from the novel itself, plus a really great transcript of George Saunders himself explaining exactly how to read it.
Exactly, because, our mission today is to decode this bizarre, beautiful book so you can experience its profound emotional payoff without getting lost in the experimental weeds.
It's notoriously challenging at first glance. I mean, it's a work of historical fiction, but it absolutely refuses to hold your hand or spoon-feed you the narrative.
Yeah.
The structure is unconventional, the voices are incredibly numerous, and the setting is it's entirely surreal.
And reading through Saunders' own commentary in our sources, he actually admits this up front. He notes that when he was on his book tour, readers would constantly come up to him and confess they'd given it their absolute best shot, but just flat out quit around page 30.
The famous page 30 phenomenon.
Yes. He affectionately calls it the page 30 phenomenon. People were getting frustrated because the book hadn't crystallized for them yet. But he also provides a roadmap.
Right, the cheat code.
Exactly. So if you're one of those people who felt alienated by the format, consider today your cheat code. We're going to unlock the mechanics of the book so you can actually enjoy the genius of what he's doing.
To do that effectively, we first need to establish the premise, which is rooted in a very real, heavily documented, and deeply tragic historical moment.
February 1862.
Right. The American Civil War is raging, and President Abraham Lincoln is grieving the death of his young son, Willie. He's 11, and he just succumbed to typhoid fever.
But the primary setting isn't the White House.
No, it's not. It takes place in the Bardo. Now, the Bardo is a Tibetan Buddhist concept for a transitional state between life and death. In this novel, Saunders reimagines it as taking the physical form of a Georgetown graveyard.
A graveyard populated by ghosts who absolutely refuse to admit they're dead.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the rules of Saunders' ghostly world seem to be exactly where readers usually get tripped up.
It's the formatting, mostly.
Right. Looking at the source excerpts, the very first aha moment you need as a reader comes entirely from the typography. The book isn't written in standard prose. It's formatted almost like a script.
Or an oral history?
Yeah, with blocks of text followed by a citation. Here is the golden rule Saunders lays out. If a character's name is printed in lowercase letters like Hans Wollman, they are a ghost speaking from the Bardo.
And if the name is printed in uppercase letters?
Like Elizabeth Keckley, then it's a citation from a living person or a published historical text.
Recognizing that visual cue instantly clarifies the reading experience. Furthermore, Saunders masterfully blends real historical quotes from actual memoirs, like those of Elizabeth Keckley, who was Mary Todd Lincoln's dressmaker, with completely invented historical accounts.
He weaves them together.
He does. It widens the scope of the narrative and creates this fascinating mosaic where you're constantly shifting between factual history and supernatural fiction.
But returning to those lowercase ghosts in the graveyard, their psychology is what really drives the tension. They are in a state of profound, impenetrable denial.
They won't even use the terminology of death.
Right. They refuse to use the word coffin. Instead, they call it a sick box. They don't say graveyard. They insist it's simply a hospital yard. They genuinely believe they're merely recovering from an illness.
What's fascinating here is how these ghosts are literally trapped by their own obsessive storytelling. They endlessly repeat the stories of their final moments on Earth.
Like a loop.
Exactly. They believe that if they just keep telling the story of how they arrived at the hospital yard and hold on to their worldly grievances, they'll eventually recover and go home. The storytelling itself is the mechanism keeping them anchored to this transitional realm.
And what a bizarre, vivid cast of storytellers we have. We're introduced to 3 main ghost narrators who serve as our tour guides, and the sources show that their physical appearances are completely dictated by their unresolved earthly desires.
They manifest based on what they couldn't let go of.
Yeah. First, there's Hans Wollman. He's a 46-year-old printer who finally married an 18-year-old woman. On the very night they were going to consummate the marriage, he was struck in the head by a falling ceiling beam.
Such terrible timing.
Because he died in a state of sheer unfulfilled lust, he manifests in the graveyard entirely naked, sporting a massive, permanently swollen member and a horrific dent in his head.
It is deeply grotesque and humorous on the surface, but analytically, Saunders uses that physical comedy to force the reader to confront the absurdity of clinging to unfulfilled desires in the face of absolute finality.
Right.
Volman's physical state is a literal manifestation of his inability to let go of the life he almost had.
Then we have the second guide, Roger Bevins III, a young man who attempted suicide by slitting his wrists over an unrequited love for a schoolmate. But the real tragedy is the immediate regret.
He changed his mind.
At the very last second, he suddenly became acutely aware of the staggering sensory beauty of the world, the smell of beef broth, dogs sleeping in the sun. He tried to get help, but tripped and died on the kitchen floor.
So tragic.
Because he died so desperately craving the sensory experience of the world, he manifests in the Bardo with multiple extra eyes, noses, and hands, constantly sniffing and touching everything.
Bevins represents the tragedy of recognizing the beauty of life only at the exact moment it's being taken away. He is a swirling mass of sensory organs, because sensory input is the one thing he was robbed of by his own hand.
And then there's the third guide, the Reverend Everly Thomas. He's unique because he actually seems to know he's dead.
Yes, the only one of the trio.
He manifests with his hair standing straight up and his mouth locked in an O of sheer terror. The sources explain he experienced a terrifying judgment right after he died. He found himself in a blinding diamond palace where an angel pulled a man's heart out and weighed it on a scale.
Which terrified him.
Terrified him so much, he literally turned around, ran away from the afterlife, and hid in the graveyard to avoid his own reckoning.
These three figures operate effectively as a Greek chorus, and their bizarre, stagnant existence in the cold graveyard is sharply contrasted with the world of the living, which we see through those uppercase historical citations.
The structural contrast there is masterful.
Really is. The juxtaposition outlined in the sources is completely wild. While young Willie is upstairs in the White House, burning with a fever and struggling for every breath, the Lincolns are hosting a massive reception downstairs.
A political necessity to show strength during the war.
Right, but the opulence is staggering. The excerpts mention multi-tiered chandeliers, Japanese punch bowls holding 10 gallons of champagne, and massive sugar sculptures.
I love the details on those sugar sculptures. A Chinese pagoda, a Swiss cottage, and a frigate named the Union, supported by cherubs, all made entirely of spun sugar.
Saunders leverages those specific historical accounts to highlight the subjective, chaotic nature of history. If you read the uppercase citations closely, you see conflicting accounts right next to each other.
Like with the moon?
Exactly. Some attendees vividly recalled a golden, beautiful moon hanging over the White House. Others insisted the sky was leaden with dark clouds, and there was no moon at all.
Some praised the elegant music, others called it a cacophony.
It forces you, as the reader, to realize that history is not a fixed objective truth. It's a stitched-together collection of flawed, emotionally driven human memories. Meanwhile, beneath the veneer of this grand political theater, the reality is incredibly grim.
Drunken servants fist-fighting downstairs.
While upstairs, Mary Lincoln is terrified, realizing her son is slipping away.
I want you to put yourself in their shoes for a second. Imagine the psychological torment of being Abraham and Mary Lincoln on that specific night. You have to smile, shake hands, host foreign dignitaries because the country is tearing itself apart. You have to project absolute stability.
All while your child is dying just down the hall.
Set to the deeply ironic soundtrack of the Marine Band playing cheerful waltzes floating up the stairs. It is just an unfathomable emotional burden.
It truly is. And inevitably, Willie passes away. His consciousness arrives in the Bardo. This is the precise moment where the historical world of the uppercase text and the supernatural world of the lowercase text finally intersect.
When Willie appears, the other ghosts immediately recognize him as a new arrival because his form is still fresh.
And they know children aren't meant to tarry long in the Bardo. Because children have fewer deeply rooted earthly grievances, they usually flash through the graveyard quickly and move on to the actual afterlife.
But something unprecedented disrupts that natural process. Here's where it gets really interesting. In the middle of the night, Abraham Lincoln actually rides out to the Georgetown crypt alone.
Yes.
He goes into the tomb, slides the sick box out of the wall, opens it, and physically holds his dead son's body. And reading the reactions of the ghosts in the excerpts, they are absolutely dumbstruck.
They cannot process the image.
The living never come back to hold the dead. They bring flowers, weep outside the gates, and leave. They do not open the boxes.
That beautiful, heartbreaking act of parental love creates the central dilemma of the entire novel. By holding Willie, by showing such profound, tangible grief, Lincoln inadvertently traps his son.
Because Willie feels his father's love.
Right, he hears his father promise to return and decides he wants to stay in the graveyard to wait for him. But staying is incredibly dangerous, especially for a child.
Dangerous feels like a massive understatement. The graveyard actively begins to attack Willie for overstaying his natural time.
The Bardo turns on him.
Viscerally, the ground around his feet begins to liquefy. Terrifying vine-like tendrils emerge from the earth and wrap around his legs. The graveyard tries to encase him in a carapace, a heavy shell created by demonic beings threatening to trap him in a state of stagnant horror forever.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this specific trap of love is the core philosophical question Saunders is posing to you, the reader. How are we supposed to live and actively love in a completely conditional world where everything we cherish ultimately disappears?
That's the emotional core right there.
Saunders specifically designed all the experimental weirdness, the floating eyeballs, the swollen members, the demonic carapaces to lower your intellectual guard. The bizarre form breaks down your cynical armor so the pure grief of a father holding his son can hit you directly in the chest.
So we have Willie physically trapped by his father's love, and Lincoln psychologically trapped by his agonizing grief. While Lincoln is sitting in the crypt, Saunders gives us his internal monologue, and it's a staggering pivot.
His grief expands outward.
Exactly. He stops thinking just about his own son, and his mind shifts to the entire fractured nation. He specifically begins thinking about the recent Battle of Fort Donelson.
The sources detail the casualty lists from Fort Donelson that were arriving at the White House precisely as Willie was dying. 1,000 boys, just like Willie, were killed.
Left frozen solid on the winter battlefield.
Lincoln pictures them frozen in the horrific posture of looking down at their own fatal wounds. Sitting in the crypt, he realizes that, as commander-in-chief, he is directly responsible for exporting this exact, suffocating grief to thousands of other parents across the country.
So what does this all mean for Lincoln as a leader? How does a person carry the weight of their own destroyed family while simultaneously ordering the destruction of thousands of others?
He reaches an ultimate, agonizing realization. As he holds his son, he understands that all humans are suffering, limited beings. We all inevitably lose what we love most.
But to make the suffering mean something,
He cannot quit. He must win the war to ensure the sacrifice wasn't for nothing. He faces the ultimate tragic paradox of his presidency. He must end suffering by causing more suffering.
it's a profound, world-shifting epiphany. And just as Lincoln experiences this, Willie experiences one of his own. Because Lincoln finally finds the impossible strength to put the body back, close the crypt, and return to his duties, Willie realizes his father is not going to stay.
Willie finally accepts the absolute truth of his condition.
And he doesn't just quietly fade away. The text says he actually runs out into the graveyard and shouts it at the top of his lungs. He yells, "Everyone, we are dead."
The harsh truth.
And that fundamental reality they have been aggressively denying for decades actually serves as the catalyst that sets them free.
Acknowledging reality breaks the spell of the Bardo. Hearing a child plainly shout the truth causes many of the older ghosts to finally let go of their delusions. And when they do, they experience what Saunders calls the matter-light blooming phenomenon.
The matter-light blooming phenomenon, I love that term.
It's described as a sudden, blinding flash of light, accompanied by a bone-chilling sound, like a massive fire consuming a dry forest. They finally cross over, leaving nothing behind but their earthly clothes raining down onto the grass like deflated balloons.
Such a striking visual. Even Willie finally goes, but before he crosses over, he flickers through all the lives he will never get to live.
In a split second.
A young man wearing a wedding coat, then a grieving widower, and finally a bent old man holding an ear trumpet. He experiences a full human life in an instant, and then he is gone.
But the book leaves us with one last fascinating detail.
Yes. As Lincoln mounts his horse to ride back to the war, a black ghost named Thomas Havens, who had been enslaved in life, is marveling at Lincoln's newly opened, sorrow-widened mind. And Havens essentially hitchhikes
He steps inside the president's body.
and rides back to the White House with him.
It's a remarkably powerful concluding image. It suggests Lincoln is returning to the presidency carrying the literal and metaphorical spirits of the marginalized and the dead.
To summarize the emotional journey, Saunders uses a surreal ghost story and fragments of historical text to hold up a mirror to you. It's fundamentally a story about the absolute necessity of letting go and the immense courage it takes to actively love people knowing we will eventually lose them.
It's a phenomenal piece of art.
It really is, and it rewards the effort it takes to understand it. I will add, if you ever try to read the physical book and hit that page 30 wall and still feel stuck, there is an incredible audiobook version available.
Oh, the audiobook is legendary.
It features a staggering cast of 166 narrators, including people like Nick Offerman and David Sedaris. It instantly clarifies all the different voices and historical citations we discussed today.
Definitively worth experiencing in audio format if the text feels too dense. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder, something that extends beyond the 19th century graveyard of the novel.
Okay, let's hear it.
The ghosts in the Bardo were trapped because they were anchored to their curated narratives, terrified of losing their earthly identities. It leaves you wondering about our modern equivalent.
Oh, interesting.
With our endless digital footprints and social media profiles that will inevitably outlive us, are we actively creating a new kind of Bardo? Are we building digital graveyards where our avatars are permanently frozen in their best curated moments, endlessly repeating the story of who we were, unable to ever truly let go and fade away?
Wow. That is a haunting and entirely relevant question to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Lincoln in the Bardo. We'll catch you next time.